This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
It's a good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local and national Native news and events. And as you know, Wendy, I've said this over and over again, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This episode of Native Roots Radio is presented in partnership with Little Moments Count.
Little Moments Count is a statewide collaboration focused on helping parents and caregivers learn about the importance of brain development in the first 3 years of life.
Nearly 80% of brain growth happens in the first 1,000 days, and small moments of interaction like talking, playing, reading, and singing help create the pathways that build a child's brain during their early stages of life.
For more information, you can visit littlemomentscount.org.
Native Roots Radio is excited to be partnering with Little Moments Count to host conversations focused on early childhood development. We'll be welcoming monthly guests to talk about how they view the role of early childhood development in creating bright futures and strong communities.
Well, I guess a month's gone by and we're going to have Barb on again. We've had Barb on earlier, I guess maybe 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And Barb, please introduce yourselves to our vast audience. We've just picked up another 30 stations in Wisconsin, so we'll have to redo everybody else's. They don't know who we are yet, so let them know who you are, Barb.
Oh, bonjour. Happy to. Thank you for having me on here. And I am Barb Fabre, CEO of Indigenous Visioning and President of All Nations Rise.
That's awesome. And we discussed, I know last time we've discussed a few things about early childhood, I remember talking a little bit about, how two languages really put those wires together, reading to people, reading to our little ones. What else what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I was hoping to talk about one of our initiatives that we started. And it's for Indian country. It's the Indigenous Parent Leadership Initiative, and it's based off the National Parent Leadership Training Institute, which is a westernized curriculum for parent leadership. But of course, being Native and being from Indian country, we wanted to make sure that it was relatable to tribal communities. So we indigenized it for our people.
That's awesome. So you put some of our teachings in there, some things like that, and I know
Yes.
People feel our people feel really more comfortable with that way of learning. So that's really exciting. So why tell us a little bit more about IPLI, and how did it come about?
It came about when I was invited to a national children's defense event. And I met people at this event, and they were amazing people with all different backgrounds and experiences. And one particular woman I met really, she really helped me understand it and how transformative it was. She had lost everything. She, of course, got into the drugs. Just went down the wrong path, lost her children, lost her job, her house, just about everything. living on the streets. And it wasn't until she came across the National Parent Leadership Initiative that really transformed her. And when I met her, she had everything back, and she was back on track with everything. But that's how transformative this process really is for parents.
I know it's really important to have somebody go through what she did in order to tell her story to other people that maybe feel hopeless. Don't you agree? And is there more people like that out there that can really amplify that story about how well this program works?
Yes. And like I said, we didn't know. I had a parent. I administered a parent mentor program at the time when I worked for my tribe. And so I brought a parent with me, and we were both just blown away with this concept. Parents' opinions are often unheard, and sometimes they do not have the advocacy skills or the institutional knowledge needed to bring about change, and so they're left feeling hopeless about doing anything. And so the National Parent Leadership Training Institute, they define the parent leadership as the capacity to interact within civic society with purpose and positive outcomes for children. So this is basically, it's to help build up the parent and empower the parent, but in the end, it also helps them in their relationship with their children.
Wow, that's awesome, Barb. What kind of specific skills would a participant learn in this program?
Yeah, well, they the first part, it's a 20-week cohort or 21-week with a retreat. And what they do is the first part of it is they learn about the child development. And so the why things are so important to the developing brain and the developing child. And then they build off their advocacy and leadership skills, and many don't realize they even have it. So they really work on building that up. And then they provide them a civic engagement component, so they understand how governments work, both federal, state, and tribal, of course. And that's, again, how we indigenized it for Indian countries. We included the tribal government component.
Hey, we're talking to Barb Fabre, and she's talking about Little Moments Count, and you can get more information at littlemomentscount.org. Who can attend this program?
Anybody, really, anybody within the tribal community. It's really important that they commit to the 21 weeks. The first 10 sessions are on parent leadership and self-perception. Then the next 10 is civic change, government, and policy. And then throughout those courses, there's also Indigenous Cultural Foundation that was created in collaboration with Dr. Anton Troyer and elders. So we asked elders what was important to parents, or what they felt would be important for parents to understand from our culture. With some of them, like myself included, we didn't have the pleasure of or the benefit of growing up in a very strong cultural teaching within our home because of the boarding school era, of course. So we asked elders what they felt was a good foundation. And so they really helped define that. Dr. Troyer, created a beautiful, beautiful cultural foundation. And so they get that every week in addition to these other. And it's any parent who maybe just wants to be involved. We have parents who, have been through the system. And it's just been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's so important, and it's great to have, like you say, the Indigenous part of this, because our generation. I'm really excited about this next generation, because they're really working on the language and the culture. I'm so proud of so many young people that I've come across over the years, and my generation and our generation's kind of the lost one, because, like you said earlier, with the boarding schools.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so the cultural Indigenous foundation is based on the Ojibwe seasons. And so, we talk about tobacco, we talk about naming, clans, spring harvest, culture, in the games, the traditional games. So it's they're getting everything that relates to that season, ceremonies for coming of age, summer harvest, things like that. So the really things that they're learning are also very relatable. Some things they've done, maybe heard, are from elders and their grandparents. So it's all relatable. And from what I understand, and I'm hoping that we'll have a parent on here so you could be able to ask questions for themselves. But it's really transforming these parents that are going through this.
So Ogama has a great question. Is it in person or online, or is it both? How can somebody maybe from not up north, or is it just in person?
It is just in person. Of course, we tried to do this during COVID, so we're a little bit behind schedule. We had to wait until it was safe to be in person. We do have a few that are virtual, but it's really an in-person process.
Yeah, that's really good to know.
How do people sign up for this?
We actually did we did some marketing throughout the tribe, and parents applied for it. And then parents, we had an Indigenous core team that reviewed our civic engagement, our civic team, who reviewed all the applications, and then parents were interviewed. So we will have another cohort coming up in White Earth, and so we're hoping that we'll have a lot more applications.
Absolutely, that's great. Thank you so much for stopping by. Remember, littlemomentscount.org. Thank you so much, Barb.
Miigwech. Gigawabamin.
You've been listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, Peeny Gigi, for our guest, Barb.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.